All right, so last time we were speaking about the Korban Pesach. I just want to finish that we're going to Parshat Beshalach. And there is a vital concept here that we have to mention. The Torah says on page, where is it? When it gives the laws of the Korban Pesach, okay, I'm not going to look for the pasuk where it is. I don't have the pasuk straight, but the Torah says that a orel, somebody who's not had a proper circumcision, is not allowed to participate in the Korban Pesach. And not a circumcision could be any one of several things. It could be that he wasn't circumcised at all. It's rare that a Jew is not circumcised. Sometimes it could be if a Jew has had a brother who died from circumcision, from hemophilia, that they bled to death. But it's very rare. It's very rare that there be a problem. But they could theoretically be, or it could be somebody, which is more common nowadays, who's had a circumcision but not a halachic circumcision, because it could be they were circumcised in the hospital. Sometimes in the hospital, like on the third or fourth day after birth, they sometimes circumcise the babies. In the non-Jewish world, they blow back and forth with whether it is a good thing, not a good thing, it's healthy, or healthy. No, whatever it is, it's not a valid halachic circumcision. One has to have a valid halachic circumcision. In order to eat from the meat of the Korban Pesach on the night of the 14th of Nisan, one would have to have a halachic circumcision, otherwise he can't participate. That's what the halacha says. Now, there's a common denominator between bris milah and the Korban Pesach. One of the common denominators is just socially, Jews who are far removed from Judaism, these are often two of the mitzvahs. These are often two. Was it on?
I forgot to turn the back.
It happens. The bris milah and the Korban Pesach are the two mitzvahs that Jews nowadays, even Jews who are far removed from Judaism, they keep them. They will have their child circumcised. Many traditional Jews who don't do anything else, but bris milah they'll do. And they also have a Pesach Seder. They also have these two mitzvahs seem to go. And the Torah here says that you are not allowed to, somebody who has not had a bris milah cannot participate in the Korban Pesach. That means when they slaughter the lamb on the 14th of Nisan, and the family gets together, or the pre-designated people get together and they eat the roast lamb, somebody who's without a bris milah is not allowed to eat. That's what the Torah says. We spoke about that last time.
What about girls?
Girls are not included in this.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are they required to eat from it?
Yeah, everybody. Yeah, oh yeah. But the prerequisite for the males is bris milah. The question is, what's the connection over here? So we find a couple of connections, interestingly enough, between bris milah and Korban Pesach. First of all, there's the halachic connection. The halacha is, let's say a Jew transgresses Shabbos, or a Jew eats on Yom Kippur. What is the punishment? Does anybody know? What does the Torah say? What's the punishment? What's the punishment for breaking Shabbos if there are no witnesses? Kares, with premature death. Hashem takes care of him. What's the punishment for eating on Yom Kippur? Kares. What's the punishment for eating the forbidden fats of a kosher animal? The chelev is kares. What's it for the punishment for various forms of immorality where there are no witnesses? That means independent of capital punishment, which requires witnesses. If there are no witnesses, then Hashem takes care of him. And often the punishment is kares for various prohibitions that somebody transgresses. What about the neglect of a positive mitzvah? Let's say you did not put on tefillin, or let's say you did not put up a mezuzah, or did not shake a lulav, or you did not, anything like that. What is there, we never find a kares punishment. You neglected the mitzvah. You neglected the mitzvah. You shouldn't have neglected the mitzvah, but you did. Okay. So sometimes Beis Din may get involved in the times when there was a Beis Din, they may get involved in, and if they see somebody's a habitual tefillin misser, so they will then lash him. They'll apply lashes because it's not a hefker velt over. You can't just do what you want. Maybe take some, but there's no premature death. There's no kares penalty except for the neglect of two positive commands. The first one is, guess which they are, boys? Bris Milah. If somebody has not had a bris, father neglected to give him a bris, once he turns 13, he's obligated to get himself a bris milah. And if he neglects it, then he is liable for kares. He could obviously get out of it if he would have a bris milah done. But until that point, he's liable for the kares punishment, number one. Number two, somebody who is capable, that means you're not far away and he's not tameh, he's not impure, and he neglects to eat meat from the Korban Pesach on the night of Pesach, he is also liable for the kares penalty. Those are the two mitzvahs. Okay. The only two positive commands. There are quite a few negative commands. Those are the only two positive commands. Somebody question?
Yeah, I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
With regards to kares, does kares mean that you are completely cut off? Like your connection between Hashem is
Good question. There are different levels of kares. The basic level is a person dies before 60. That's the general opinion. He dies before 60, and there are also forms of kares where he won't have children, or he'll be, and it certainly severs the bond between him and Hashem. Yeah.
So how does it work? Can you still do teshuva?
You could always do tshuva. Not only that, if a person, that's a very important question. If a person, let's say, does something, let's say there are witnesses, and witnesses to his kares, but let's say witnesses saw him eat on Yom Kippur. And they said, don't eat, and he ate anyway. Now, at that point, he's liable for the kares punishment. Once he gets whipped, because there were witnesses, so now he's liable for corporal punishment. Corporal punishment down here, that removes the kares. If he gets the corporal punishment, so then that removes the kares penalty. It's no longer hovering over him, the kares. Because once he gets whipped, it's learned from a pasuk. Once a guy gets whipped, he is considered your brother again. And so there are ways to get out of it. But again, the best thing is be good. Right? Don't get into trouble at all. Right? If you don't get into trouble, then we're worried about not getting whipped. But at the end of the day, that's the okay. Now, there's another connection, and this is what I wanted to get to. You see, there's another common denominator between Bris Milah and Korban Pesach. What is it? What's the first thing that comes to mind? You think about what's that? Blood, correct. Both involve blood. Blood always was symbolic of a pact. I know I'm smiling because in all the cowboy movies, there were right there you go. They became blood. You became blood brothers. Now with once AIDS started, then they stopped that in the movie. Just not the same drama with gloves. Can you take off your glove for a second? We'll do it through the gloves. But there was this concept of being blood brothers. A pact is sealed in blood. The pact of Bris Milah, it's a pact, was given to who? Who was the command of Bris Milah to? Given to Avram Avinu, the individual Jew. Avram was alone in the world as the individual Jew. Korban Pesach is the first mitzvah given to collective Klal Yisrael in Egypt, the entire group. And what that means is both are a pact. They both involve blood. There's a pact between God and the individual Jew. There's a pact between God and the collective of Klal Yisrael. If you want to be considered a member of the collective of Klal Yisrael, you have to carry out your responsibilities as an individual Jew. You're Jewish if you're born Jewish or convert into Judaism. Then you're Jew. We're not talking about technically Jewish. But if you want to be really a member, if you want to be on the team, you can't just join collective Klal Yisrael. I have a strong Jewish identity. We do Purim, and we do Hanukkah, and we do Sukkot, and we light candles on Shabbos, all the fun stuff. And therefore we're Jewish. Listen, what about fasting? I didn't hear you say anything about fasting. No, we're not into that. Yeah, shkoyach. You want to be, and what about getting to shul at 6:30 in the morning? No, I haven't got time for that. What about putting on tefillin? Too expensive. What about Shabbos? No, I got a lot of things I got to take care of, so I need to drive. 1 second. You want to be considered a card-carrying member of Klal Yisrael and be joined in the group pact with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, with the Bris, the Jew. You have to first do your individual pact. That's the symbolism. That your individual responsibility as a Jew, which is keeping the halachas and doing what you have to do, then you're considered a member of the club. You want to be a member of the club just to do the fun things. It doesn't work that way. Don't you have to, for when you're in college, what's it called? Don't you have to pledge? To become part of a fraternity, don't you have to pledge to get in there? You want to be a member of the club, you're going to have to pledge. You won't just take anybody who decides to join in. You're going to have to pledge to be a member of the fraternity. You want to be a member of the Jewish fraternity, you have a pledge constantly. The pledge is keeping Torah and mitzvahs. Then that's the problem with the groups like conservative and certainly reform, where it's all about identity. But where's your responsibility as an individual? And not only that, then where's your continuity? There is no continuity represented by the Bris Milah. Why is there no continuity? Because you didn't take care of the pact the way you should have. Therefore, your Judaism dissipates. That's what happens. And that's what the Torah says. That's the connection between Bris Milah and Korban Pesach. Okay, let's go to Parshas Beshalach. I really hate to do this. I really did not want to do this. I didn't want to have to resort to this. But you know what a POW stands for? What's that? Prisoner of war, right. It also stands for power of the whammy. I have known to have certain powers, and I'm now going to give the Eagles the whammy. I'm giving them a gajang. I didn't want to resort to this, but I have no choice. And that's it. It is now, that's it. It basically counted. It's finished. It's not going to happen. I didn't want to do this. I had to do this because Sam has just been cheeky the whole week. He's overconfident, and they're just strutting, and I'm now giving him a gajang. It's finished. Now take all your money from under your mattresses, guys, and put it on KC, because it's going to happen. All right, I'm telling you. It's never failed me. So, boy, it's going to be a bad day if they lose. Boy, it's going to be a really bad day. You may need. I have been contemplating retirement for a while. Okay, take a look at page 366. So the Jewish people are leaving Mitzrayim. Vahi Beshalach Paro es ha'am. Paro sends out the nation. V'lonocham Elokim derech eretz plishtim ki karovu. Hashem wouldn't let them out by the way of the Philistines, because it was too close. Ki amar Elokim pedinoche ma'am birosa milchama v'yeshavu Mitzrayim. Hashem takes them in a circuitous route because he's worried that if they see the Philistines, they may become intimidated and want to go back to Egypt. That's the first thing it says. Number one. So that's number one. Number two, it says Vayihi Beshalach Paro. So I'm going to tell you something. It's a really incredible idea here. Vayihi Beshalach Paro. Paro escorts out the Jewish people. As a result of Paro escorting the Jewish people, later on, there's a pasuk in the Torah that says later on, Lo Sisa'ev Mitzri. We're not allowed to torment the Egyptians. The Torah says later on not to torment the Egyptians. That's a reward for Paro escorting out the Jewish people. Now, obviously, Paro is escorting them out. He's certainly not doing this out of his goodwill. He just get out of here because everybody's dying, and I don't want to die because I'm a firstborn. That's why he's escorting them out. So, Vahi Beshalach Paro, but in every action that we do, see, we're very superficial. We think that, you do a mitzvah and you get a reward, you do a mitzvah, you get a reward, you do another, you get punishment. Every one of our actions in the world of truth is going to be broken down into infinite components. Because in one action, you can have different motivations. You could give somebody tzedakah, because at one level you feel, listen, it's a mitzvah to give tzedakah. At another level you feel compassion. At a third level you feel a little bit of haughtiness. What a tzaddik I am because I'm giving tzedakah. So one action can have different levels, and it's broken down into many different components. Paro escorting the Jewish people, why is he's doing it all for himself? Somewhere deep down inside somehow is also the idea of the mitzvah of escorting the guest. When you have a guest in your house, you escort him out. It's a mitzvah to escort the guest out. It's also just, to make sure he leaves. But so even when you're escorting a guest, you have a guest, a long-winded guest at your house, and you escort him. So a lot of it is because you're thinking, well, boy, I can finally get some relief over here. But it could also be, at some level, you're thinking about the mitzvah. So that in the world of truth, which is infinite, we have no way of measuring it other than standing in line at a bank, which is infinite. But in the world of truth, or being stuck in an LA traffic jam, which is longer than infinity, at some level, somewhere deep down, Paro has proper motivation. And later on, there's a pasuk that says, Lo sesaiv mitzri, you're not allowed to torment the Egyptians. Okay, now, the word vayihi, anybody know where we find the word vayihi in a very popular piece of Torah literature? Where is vayihi? There's something that starts with the word vayihi. What's that? Vayihi b'mei Achashverosh. It was in the days of Achashverosh. And the Gemara said that the word vayihi indicates distress, tsar. Vayihi b'mei Achashverosh. It was in the days of Achashverosh. That introduces trouble for the Jewish people. So the commentaries say, Vahi Beshalach Paro, Vahi is a loshon of tsar. It's a terminology of how do we translate tsar in the best word? Distress, trouble. What's that?
Pain, distress.
Pain, distress. There's something negative about it. Vahi, tsar, so anything you can think of. Anything you can think of which is distress. Yeah. I know. Listen, I'm not gonna whip a dead horse. Whatever the expression is. But whatever represents distress. Why is Vayihi Beshalach Paro? What's distressful about it? What's sad about it? I mean, if he's sending out the Jewish people, what's distressful about it? Why Vayihi Beshalach Paro? What's wrong with that? What's sad? What's that to be unhappy about? What?
For him.
For him, it's distressful, but before Medrash says distressful for the Jewish people. We're only worried about our tsar. Vahibi me'achashverosh is not Achashverosh's tsar, it's the Jewish people's tsar. Tsar, I keep saying the word tsar, tzadik ayin resh. Like you ever heard the word tsarot? Tsaris, a person, yes, he got tsaris. Tsaris is just the mispronunciation of tsarot. Tsarot means troubles. Vahibi me'paro, it's trouble. There's something troubling here. What's troublesome about being sent out of Egypt? What's the problem? The problem is ascribing it to Paro. That's the problem. Vahi Bishalach Paro. The Jewish people say, we're getting out of Egypt. Why are we getting out? Because Paro is sending us out of Egypt. That's the trouble. The trouble is attributing what's happening to Paro. Where should they be attributing it to? To the Ribono Shalom. And the Torah is timeless. And that's why we have, in our day and age also, we also have this problem of ascribing what we see happening on the ground, and we get all caught up on an individual level also. It could be whether you're a person successful in the stock market, because, I've learned up the market, I understand the stock market. It could be a person who's successful in business, a person successful in some other area of life where a person ascribes it to himself. That's already a tsar. What's happening over here, certainly in Israel's wars, which we've spoken about, which is very, very deceptive, because we're seeing the fight, you see the battle, and it's very, very difficult for us to constantly remind ourselves that this is the hand of God. And the Jewish people, certainly where they're being chased out by Egyptians, they're being rushed out of Egypt, so it's very difficult to lose sight of the fact that it's the Ribono Shalom takes you out, number one. Number two, the Torah then says that Hashem did not take them by way of the Plishtim. Because Hashem was worried. The people, look, they came out of Egypt. They were slaves. Now what they're going to see, the Plishtim are going to attack them. So Hashem takes them in a circuitous route. So the Mefarshim say, again, that, gentlemen, the word Torah comes from the word Torah. We're learning Torah, right? Torah comes from the word Hora'ah. Hora'ah means teaching. The whole Torah is constantly supposed to teach us life lessons. And the life lesson is here that sometimes in life I see the direct route. I see how to become successful. And somehow my efforts are not meeting with success. And somehow HaKadosh Baruch Hu is taking us on a circuitous route. So for example, a guy wants to get a job, and everywhere he applies for a job, he can't get a job. They're not hiring him, and for some reason this didn't work out. That deal where a guy opens up a business and it's not working out. Why shouldn't it work out? I have a very, very clear path. It could be a guy's looking for a wife, sometimes in shidduchim, and he goes out. It doesn't work out with this one. Doesn't work out there. Why is it taking me so long? It should be happening. And you see that, and often in life, HaKadosh Baruch Hu takes us on circuitous routes till a person meets success. We are frustrated by it. We certainly don't understand it. The Torah is telling you, look what happened over here. Hashem even gives the reason. the Jewish people were wondering, why aren't we going straight? Why does go right through, up through Gaza, up through Ashkelon, and go into Eretz Yisrael? What's the problem? And HaKadosh Baruch Hu takes them around. We're going to see it's going to be 40 years. And that's a life lesson that often the route we want to take, and all of a sudden it's blocked off. Last night I had to go from my neighborhood to Ramat Beit Shemesh, which normally goes on the Tel Aviv-Yerushalayim highway, and then you turn right, and you go to Ramat Beit Shemesh. He puts on the Waze. We went through Beitar. Completely different direction, and then you go on this weavy, turny, why? Because that was the healthier route. God got us there faster. There is a spiritual Waze here. It's like HaKadosh Baruch Hu has a Waze for us. We look at the route and think this is the right route in life. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, no, I'm going to take you on a different route. Now, this is very strange. Vayasev Elokim esam derech hamidbar Yamsuf. He takes them by way of the desert. Vachamushim alu b'nei Yisrael me'eretz Mitzrayim. Hashem took them up. Rashi says chamushim means they were armed. In other words, the Jewish people, they have to take some weapons with them. There's another opinion that it refers to supplies. They have supplies with them. And the word chamushim comes from the Hebrew word chamesh, which the Gemara says, how many Jews left Egypt? 1/5. 4/5 of the Jews, we spoke about that last week, 4/5 of the Jews died during the plague of darkness. Now, depending on how many Jews left, that means a whole lot died. And we spoke about the logistical problems of burying so many people in 3 days of darkness, or 6 days of darkness, whatever it would be. I mean, how many Jews died in Egypt? By the way, I saw interesting why they died. These were the Jews who during darkness could not restrain themselves, and when they went into the Egyptian houses, they did take the stuff. We were speaking of how the Jews went around only looking. I mean, between me and you, that's a test also, isn't it? You walk into they're helpless, and this is the guy who's been whipping you. For the last 20 years, this guy's been whipping you every morning, and you finally got him, and he's vulnerable, and he's standing there. When are you just going to walk? Just walk right there. Hey, Waleed, have a good day. Oops. It may be difficult to avoid that, to overcome. So apparently, according to one of the commentaries, they did not overcome the temptation. They didn't overcome the temptation. And it's like walking into the house and you see your brother bent over. There isn't an older brother seeing his younger brother bent over who didn't walk past without doing at least something to him. Right? It's almost beyond natural law. That's the way of the world, right? Hey, listen, he's there to be hit. So number one. Number two, you're looking at all this jewelry and gold. So there is an opinion that they died. But again, the numbers don't make sense. According to one of the midrashim, 6 million Jews left, so it comes out 300 million Jews died. What does that mean? That's what the Medrash says. Based on the Medrash, the numbers are exaggeratedly high. What does that mean? What does that mean? So I want you to turn back to the book of Bereshis for a second. Turn back to the book of Bereshis, all the way back to the page. Keep your finger on the place here. And the first murder in history. First killing in history. Cain and Abel. So it's on page 20. Page 20. Page 20, the Cain and Abel go out to the field. And take a look down, gentlemen, about Pasuk Yud. A little past halfway, a little past the 50-yard line. What do you call it? It's about 10 lines from the bottom. So Hashem confronts Cain after he kills Hevel. Everybody see that? Vayomer. Everybody got that? On page 20. About 10 lines from the bottom. Vayomer. Hashem says to Cain, Me'asisa. What'd you do? Kol demei achicha tzoakim elai min ha'adama. The sound of your brother's blood is crying out to me from the earth. But you'll notice it doesn't say kol dam achicha. It doesn't say the sound of your brother's blood. It says the sound of your brother's bloods. Demei is plural. Kol demei achicha. The sound of your brother's bloods. is calling out. Why is it plural? Why is it plural? The sound of your brother's bloods. But how is the... Was it like that? The bloods, isn't that how did he do it? It's really, right? So Cain walks up to Hevel, he goes, "Hey, Hevel," like, yeah, and Hevel's not intimidated, so he kills him. And that's our version of the story, but that's not quite what happened. So Cain, what's the other one called? The crip? Well, do they have a thing?
Yeah, the sea.
Oh, just the sea.
Yeah.
Just the sea.
You don't know who's watching.
Like the Chicago, I ain't scared. Bring it on. the what do you call it? So it says his bloods. Why does it say his bloods, not his blood? Kol demei achicha, his bloods.
Maybe not him, but the future generations. That
Excellent. The Gemara says, Damo v'dam zari Yosef, his blood and the blood of future generations. That means that when a person's accountable, you're not accountable for what happened and what we see. What about what would have happened? Remember when Moshe Rabbeinu killed the Egyptian? He looked to see if anything's going to come from him. You can't just, so you kill a person, he killed him. What about all those future generations that would have come? Now he's accountable for those future generations. The Jews that died in Egypt, according to one of the commentaries, it's not that number, the vast number that they throw around literally died, which answers the question, how could they have buried all of them in Egypt? I don't know how many of them died. But one thing is clear, many future generations were lost. Millions of future generations were lost. That's why we talk about nowadays how we're going through a silent Holocaust. A person who intermarries, a guy has a couple of kids and they intermarry, how many Jewish generations are lost? We've lost more Jews now than we have in the physical Holocaust. Because people are intermarrying. So a person intermarries. So then they have, their children are no longer Jewish. So look at all the generations that have gone lost. So you have the number to explain what it means that so many Jews died in Egypt. Sure, so many Jews died in Egypt. That means future generations. I had a roommate when I was here at Ohr Somayach. This was a guy who was in the Israeli army. He was an Israeli guy. He was in the Israeli division of Ohr Somayach. So this guy was in a Jeep, and somebody, or a Jeep or a half track, and somebody hit the brakes. There's a crate of bottles, of cans or bottles, that flew off and hit him in the back of the neck, and it severed his the spine, and he was in the hospital on a respirator, and the doctors were going to pull the plug. And his father, they're not observant family. His had a sister who was actually a member of the Knesset, of the Israeli Knesset, and his father told them, "Don't you dare." And eventually, he was able to. He was paralyzed. His entire right side was paralyzed, but he lived. He's married. He has 6 kids, and a future generations of. Now imagine that doctor pulled the plug, so he's killed off future generations of Jewish people. So it's not that difficult to imagine. It's not difficult to imagine what the ramifications are. So if a person understands, that's the Chamushim Alu B'nei Yisrael Mitzrayim is referring to the future generations. Okay, well, there's another point here. Back to I skipped one point that's very important for us. I had a guy here once years ago. So there's a summer program. So the guys came in, and I think it was right before the fast of the 17th of Tammuz. Now these guys were completely, and they have very little connection to Judaism whatsoever. So I spoke about the fast of Tammuz, and then the next day they came back, and I went around the room. I said, Mike, did you fast? He goes, nah, I'm not into that. I said, Rick, did you fast? He says, yeah, boy, it was the hardest thing I ever did in my life. I said, Tom, did you fast? He goes, well, I'll tell you the truth. I started, and then I was walking downtown, and I passed by a falafel shop, and then something happened. He said, that's exactly how he said it. Something happened, yeah. If you're fasting and you walk by a falafel shop, something happened, yeah. So what happened? He ate falafel. That's what he did. Something happened. In life, people have challenges. If you have a challenge, what's the Torah teaching us? God takes the Jewish people past. He goes through a circuitous route to avoid a problem. Why is there a problem? Because the Jewish people are going to have trouble handling this. A person who's trying to grow in their Yiddishkeit understands I have vulnerabilities. There are certain things I'm vulnerable to. If in the past, I had a guy here once told me his dream meal before he became a Baal Tshuva, and he said before he was from, he loved seafood, and his dream meal was a shark steak with a side order, I think, of lobster and crab, something like that. That was his dream meal, all of which are treifas at McDonald's. And he said now, if you have a weakness for it and you're struggling with it, so the best thing to do is avoid areas where they have seafood. If a person has a vulnerability, let's say a person has trouble with drinking. Some people don't have trouble with drinking. They drink all the time. I mean, they have a serious drinking problem. You have to avoid the taverns. Don't go anywhere near where there's a tavern because you're vulnerable. Because Baruch Hu says, if the Jewish people are vulnerable, I have to keep them far away. Very important rule in Yiddishkeit. We do not take on challenges and try to overcome them. We try to avoid the challenges to begin with. That means we say every morning in davening, Hashem, please do not bring us loli de chet, loli de avon, veloli de nisayon. Don't bring us to a state of test. We're not looking for the tests. Life is hard enough. What did they tell you in martial arts? When there's a possible confrontation, what are you supposed to do in martial arts? Walk away. Walk away. Because that's the show of strength. If a person knows that if I go downtown and I go to a bar or a club, even though a couple of guys asked me, is it okay for us to go to a bar and review the Gemara in the bar with a beer? Right? Because just to relax with the bar and a beer and the Gemara. I see. Yeah, you couldn't find a better place to review Gemara except with a bar with a beer. And then the entrance to the bar is the entrance to Gehenna. And you're going to sin. Now, don't go there and overcome the Yetzer Hara. It doesn't work that way. The test isn't when you're there. The test is at the point deciding where you're going to be going. Right now is the test. Should I go there or should I go there? A guy said to me, yeah, listen, I went to the beach the other day and I lost control of my eyes. Yeah, really? No kidding. No kidding. Right? The test wasn't when you were at the beach. Once you're at the beach, you're finished. You're dead. The test is should I go there or not? Should I go to the beach or the mixed beach, or should I go to the from beach? They have a separate beach here where you can see a lot of Chassidish guys running around in Gatkis. That's where you should be. The test is always in the decisions. We put ourselves in situations, the Torah say, don't put yourself in that situation. Yeah, Lenny, go.
What are basically in every city that's not this one, there's going to be a bunch of unkosher food and whatever physical temptation.
Best we can. It's a good question.
World out there. So, but for example, like with kosher, like for me, like food's a big vice. Like also because kosher food kind of sucks, but it doesn't have to suck. It just happens to suck.
It depends. First of all, we could use what you mean is it's not as appetizing as other food.
But every city, like you're gonna drive by treif that you used to eat.
Okay.
You can't not.
You're right.
Giant bill, you can't not see the golden arches.
You're right.
Right? So
what do you do? Okay, good. The answer like everything else. Once I've said what I said, is we do the best we can. That's the rule. Do the best you can. We live in this world. What can we do? But there are still options to avoid. First of all, I don't agree with you about kosher food. There are lots of excellent kosher restaurants. Okay, it costs about 14 times the price of what you would pay for non-kosher food. But there are plenty of good kosher restaurants, good kosher bakeries, good kosher. Food were okay. What we want to do is try to avoid those situations, try to avoid past relationships where they're not healthy, where even to meet up or even just to make contact is going to lead to all sorts of trouble. Food is the same thing. There's good food. If you have specific vulnerabilities, so a person has to just be smart. That's all, to the best we can. Listen, we live in the world. What can you do? We live in this world. It's hard. You even they have a lot of you walk into to get kosher food. They have a kosher counter in many of the, what's it called, Ralph's in Los Angeles. They have a kosher counter. The rest of the place is not kosher. Most of it is not kosher. Okay, so you have to avoid that and stay with the kosher food. But if you know that you have a specific vulnerability, you avoid a special places, special people. You have a friend who's a negative influence. He's always the guy who's supplying the drug. So avoid that guy. That's the rule. But we have to do the best we can. None of us listen. Every day's a test. Don't think differently. I don't know what you guys think. That just because you have a beard and a black hat and a black and all of a sudden you just there it is. It's every day's another test. Every day's another test. If it isn't this test, it's a test of character development. It's a test of being patient with your kids, being patient with your wife, being patient with your family. We're constantly being tested. Constantly being tested. The tests end when they take us out horizontal. That's when the tests end. Right? While we're vertical, every day's a test. Because every day is another day of growth. That's the way it works. Okay, now I'll show you something interesting. Watch this. Vayikach Moshe es atzmos Yosef imo. Moshe takes Yosef's bones with him. Ki hashbeya hi shbeya es b'nei Yisrael. Because Yosef invoked an oath. Lamor, pokod yifkod elokim eschem. God's going to one day redeem you. V'ha'alisam es atzmosai mizayitchem. You're going to take my bones with. So the Torah says that Yosef took Yosef's bones with him. Or if you remember at the end of Parshat Vayechi, before Yosef died, he invoked an oath. He said to the Jewish people, take my bones with you. Yosef died before all of his brothers. He died at 110. He said, when you leave Egypt, take my bones with you to bury them in Eretz Yisrael. And he invoked an oath. So here the Torah says, first of all, the Medrash says, how did Moshe find Yosef's bones? The Egyptians had hid Yosef's bones. So there are two opinions. There's one opinion that they put Yosef into the last pasuk in Parshas Vayechi, Vayusam. It says Vayusam ba'oron b'Mitzrayim. Yosef was put in a coffin. He embalmed him, and he was placed in a coffin in Egypt. The Egyptians dropped his coffin into the Nile because they felt that he would be prosperous for them. So when Moshe Rabbeinu, when it was time to leave, Moshe Rabbeinu went to the Nile, and he said, "Okay, Yosef, we're leaving. Come on up." And miraculously, it floated. He said, if you don't come up, we're leaving without you. And miraculously, the coffin floated to the top. And the Gemara says, don't wonder about it, because Elisha the prophet, also caused an axe to float in water. And he's only a disciple of Moshe Rabbeinu's disciple. Eliyahu from Moshe Rabbeinu, Elisha from Eliyahu. And Elisha, there's a miraculous incident where a guy dropped his axe in the water, and Elisha caused the axe to float to the top. So Moshe Rabbeinu caused Yosef's coffin to float to the top. There's another opinion that he was actually buried in some sort of tombs. Very interesting, like the pyramids. And his coffin was among the kings. And Moshe Rabbeinu said, okay, Yosef, come on, time to go. And the coffin came out. So Moshe Rabbeinu takes Yosef's coffin to bury him. Now, look at this pasuk again, Joe. Does anything bother you here? Pay attention very carefully. 5 lines from the top. Vayikach Moshe es atzmos Yosef imo, ki hashbeya hi shbeya es b'nei Yisrael, because he invoked an oath. Lemor poko divkod elokim es chabiza. Anything bother you about that pasuk? Moshe Rabbeinu took Yosef's bones because Yosef invoked the oath. Nothing bother?
Joseph's dead.
Right.
How does he invoke an oath to the future?
No, he invoked an oath then that was passed down from generation to generation. Promise your children you'll take me out of here. It almost sounds like, had he not invoked the oath, why did Moshe Rabbeinu do it? Only because he invoked an oath. And if he wouldn't invoke the oath, Moshe Rabbeinu wouldn't take it. They wouldn't have tried to get Yosef's bones out of there. Only because of the oath. Only because he fulfilled an oath. Only because Yosef made an oath. That's why. Not bothered by that at all? Doesn't bother you at all?
What about the rest of Yossi's family? Like they were all.
So it says that along with his bones, their bones are coming up for sure. Their bones is coming up for sure. Yeah. The brother. Yeah. Only Yosef had to invoke an oath. Why is he invoking the oath? Why? So why? It sounds like a Moshe Rabbeinu only because Yosef made him promise. He wouldn't have promised, he wouldn't have done it. So I saw a very interesting. Moshe Feinstein says very, very interesting. He says that's not telling you why Moshe did it. Because there's a bigger question here. One question answers another question. Why did Yosef have to even invoke an oath? Let's say Yosef would have said to his brothers, hey guys, do you mind taking me out of Egypt when you leave? I mean, don't these guys owe him a debt of gratitude? He supported them for all these years. You have to make them swear to take you with you. It's not enough to just ask for a favor after you supported them for all these years? Not enough? So why didn't he make them swear? Oh, the answer is Yosef felt that the brothers don't owe him anything. He didn't feel the brothers owe him anything. Why not? He supported them all these years. So why don't they owe him anything? Because Yosef felt, obviously, and not only that, they sold him there. They sold him to Egypt. Yosef felt, HaKadosh Baruch Hu put me here. Hashem, and so he even said to the brothers, he said, don't feel guilty. You tried to do something negative, and Hashem made it come out good. All for the point of me supporting everybody. So Yosef took no credit for himself. That's a tremendous act, a display of humility. It has nothing to do with me. I'm only a tool in God's hands. Oh, so who ends up taking Moshe's bones, Yosef's bones? Who ends up taking Yosef's bones? Moshe Rabbeinu. Why did he merit to have the most humble person in history take his bones? Because he himself displayed humility by invoking an oath. He felt, they don't owe me a favor, so I'll have to make them swear. So the Torah is actually answering that question. Vayikach Moshe atzmos Yosef imo ki hashbeya hishbiya. Why did Yosef swear? Because he felt they don't really owe me anything. I have to make them swear because they don't owe me anything. Otherwise, why should they take my bones? And therefore, he merits that the most humble person in history is the one who takes his bones. The Gemara says, while Moshe Rabbeinu was taking the bones, what were the rest of the Jewish people doing?
Packing up, leaving?
Packing up what?
Oh, the gold of the...
Gold, they're gathering gold, they're gathering. The Gemara says, Chacham le vikach mitzvahs. While the Jewish people were gathering the money, Moshe Rabbeinu was taking Yosef's bones.
But they were commanded.
They were commanded, but nobody was doing it. And there's a halacha that if it's a mitzvah, but nobody else is doing it, you got to get involved. So Moshe Rabbeinu went to everybody else is packing up money and packing up their donkeys, and Moshe Rabbeinu takes Joseph. But the idea here is, that it's not a reason why. The Torah is not saying why he did it. The Torah is telling you why Yosef merited to have Moshe do it. Because Yosef's humility, and therefore he gets the most humble person in history, deals with it. Moshe Rabbeinu having dealing with the bones is it's a very big honor. Hashbeah hishbeah, by the way, what's the root of the word hashbeah? What's the word of the root of the word hashbeah? Sheva, which is 7. How much is 7 times 7? Hashbeah hishbeah. When he said, Yosef invoked an oath that you're going to be redeemed. When are you going to redeem? 7 times 7 is what? 49. When the Jewish people got to what level of spiritual impurity? 49. When you get to the 49th level of spiritual, then Hashem is going to take you out of Mitzrayim. No accidents in Torah. All right, boys.